Now we want to see how we can print out these multi-dimensional arrays, and I'm not talking about printing out one value because we know how to do that. If we want to print out this value or this value, we know exactly how we do that. First box is for the rows and the second box is for the columns. You just indicate inside of there what you want to print out. But if we want to print out this entire array, I'm talking about the entire thing, and I want this to look nice. I want it to look something like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9. We have our different rows and our different columns. Row 1, which is over here, row 2, well, I guess I should say this is row 0, right? But this is the first row, which corresponds to this over here, which is 0. This is row 1, which is the second row, which corresponds to this. And you have your third row, which corresponds to that. Now, this is going to be a bit confusing, right? So this is one of the videos where we're going to move really slow to try to make sure we know exactly what's going on. I'm going to put a lot of markup in here just so we know where everything starts and finishes, because there's going to be curly braces all over the place. So I'm going to write start of class up here. I'm going to go ahead and write start of main over here. I'm going to go ahead and write end of main over here, and we'll put end of class over here, just so we know what's going on. You don't necessarily need to do this in your program if you're writing this along with me. However, for watching on screen, I recommend we do it. So I'm going to go ahead and design some function, right? We're going to go find a method. So I'm going to design this outside of the main, but inside of the class. And this is going to be public static void. I'm going to call this print array. So this method is going to be for printing an array. Now, we don't know which array we want to pass through here just yet. So that means we need to use an argument to leave this open to, not open to interpretation, but open to be flexible, right? It needs to be able to have any array pass through it. It doesn't know exactly what the array is going to be or how big it's going to be. So we need to really design this generally. So inside of here, my argument is going to be passing through A. Now, A is going to be the argument. Now, we know if I just wrote integer A, well, that means it's expecting a variable. If I just wrote integer A and open and close square brace, that means it's expecting a one-dimensional array. And if you put 2 boxes, that means you're expecting a multi-dimensional array. So you're going to have one slot open for your rows and one slot open for your columns, but you're not going to put anything inside of here. This just indicates that you want to pass through an array. Now we're going to go ahead and open up here. So now I'm going to go ahead and make some more markups. I'm going to write start of print array method. And down here, I'm going to go end of print array method, and we have a lot more curly braces coming, don't worry. Now, we saw when we wanted to print out our one-dimensional arrays, we did that using a for loop, and the for loop allowed us to keep going through the array and keep going through one value at a time and then printing them out. Now, we're going to have 2 for loops when we're dealing with a multi-dimensional array, and this is going to get a little bit confusing. So we'll start off inside of this print array function that we created, and we're going to write the keyword for to indicate we want to work with a for loop. Now, this first one is going to be keeping track of the rows. So this here, this counting variable that we always have inside of the brackets of our for loop, we're just going to go ahead and call this row, right? Keep it nice and simple. And I'll start up by assigning that a value of 0, because we know that if we're dealing with arrays like to start counting at 0, just like computers. So we should go ahead and respect that and make that at 0 as well. You'll put semicolon over here. And now we want to figure out what type of condition do we want to have over here? We know that we want to have row is going to be less than. What exactly does it need to be less than? We have to think about this here, right? We know that whatever array we're going to be passing through is going to be represented by A. So we should use A over here because we want this to be flexible to be able to accommodate for whatever array we pass through. So we're going to use this A that we have over here for our argument, and we want to make sure that this is going to be the size of the array. And we saw that if we use the dot length keyword over here, this means it's going to take the size of the array. Now I'm going to show you guys, pass you guys through the process after we begin, actually going ahead and passing our not Prius multi-dimensional array through here. But this will essentially be not Prius dot length once you actually go ahead and pass the array through. So keep that in mind. This is going to be replaced by the size of the array or the length. Next, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our increment operator, which is just going to be row plus plus, which means each time we pass through this loop, we want to go ahead and increase the row by 1. And that's all we need for our conditions, and that's going to be our for loop. So I'm going to write start of row for loop, and down here I'm going to write end of row for loop. Now we have more curly braces coming. This is why I'm putting all this notation here, because it's getting kind of confusing. Now we're not going to really be writing anything inside of our row for loop, because we're going to go ahead and put our second for loop inside of it, and this is going to be the for loop for the column. So we're going to have the same thing. I'll have this counting variable called column. It's going to keep track of the columns. And now we're going to see what exactly do we want to put here as our condition, right? We're going to put column, and we're going to put less than, but what is it going to be less than? It's going to be less than A, which is going to be the array you pass through, and you're going to be passing through row, so whatever variable you're on over here, and don't worry, we're going to see the whole process of passing through as we progress. But we're going to pass this row variable, so whatever row variable we're on at that time is going to be inside of the array, and now we're going to put dot length. So what exactly is the purpose of this? Now, if we go back up here, right? When I say row A length, right, I'm talking about a row length, right? So I'm talking about here, it sees that this row is being 1, 2, 3. That's the length of the row. It's only going to have 3 passes through the loop, right? And then it's going to stop as soon as it reaches the end here. Obviously, this will be 0, 1, and 2, and then it stops. Now, inside of here, you want to actually accommodate each row because it's possible that you might not have the same amount of values on each row, right? You might have less on a certain row. So if I were to go ahead and write A, which means I want to talk about whatever array we're going to be passing through, I'm going to be talking about whatever row we're in because the first box here is always going to indicate the row. So now whatever row you are in because of here, right, this is going to be counting your row. It's going to indicate which row you're on, and now you want the length of that row, which is either going to be, in this case, it'll be 2 for each of them, which is 0, 1, 2, or 3. I guess you can say it'll also be 3. I should have went with 3, right? It is 3. It's not 2. You're counting at 2, but not for the sake of this. However, you always, you have to keep in track that you might have a different length of a row. Just keep that in mind. And now we're going to have our increment, so column plus plus, and now we have to put our curly braces, and that's a lot of curly braces, right? So this is start of column for loop. I should go ahead and get rid of this here. Can I get rid of this? Yeah, give me some space. Can you leave? No, okay, that's not leaving entirely, but this is fine. This is nice. Down here, I'm going to go ahead and write end of column for loop. All right, now that was an ordeal. Now, what are we going to want to put inside of this one, right? Because you have to put something inside of these loops. It would be boring if we just left them blank. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put an output. I'm going to write system out print, not print line, print. You'll see why I'm doing this in a moment. And now inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and put A, which is going to represent the array I'm passing through. I'm going to put row inside of the first box. We know that that's going to represent row. And I'm going to put column inside the second box, and that's going to represent column. Now I'm also going to go ahead and put a space here. I'm going to put a plus, and I'm just going to put a space inside of 2 quotation marks right here. And you'll see why I did that in a moment, just so I can space out the numbers. Now, we know that if we look at this here, the first time you pass through, you can have 0 here, and you're going to have 0 here. Well, we know that's going to correspond to the 1 over here, right? And then you're going to go ahead and pass through the column loop because it knows that it's time to go through the column loop. So you're going to go pass through the entire loop, and you're going to go through each column inside of row 0. Well, we know this is column 0 in row 0. This is going to be column 1 in row 0, and this is going to be column 2 in row 0. So it's going to pass through and print out that line. And once you're finished with that line, it's going to finish the loop, and then you're going to have to go back into the row 4 loop, and now you're going to be in row 1. So now you're going to pass through, and you're going to go through row 1, column 0, row 1, column 1, and then row 1, column 2. Now you finish the column loop, but oops, you have to go back inside the for loop one more time because you have not satisfied a.length yet. And now you're going to have row 2, column 0, which is going to be the 7. Then you're going to have row 2, column 1, and then row 2, column 2. And now you're finished with your thing. And that's why we have this little thing here, this little space, just to give us a little bit of space so it looks nice and neat. Now we're almost done. We're done with this part over here, right? And this is extremely complex. This is being brave here. We do need to include one more thing, right? Because we want to make sure that we actually have the space, or else all this stuff's going to be on the same line. So where are we going to go ahead and put a request to print line, right? The print line is going to allow us to get that new space. So if we put a system output and we just write print line and we don't put anything inside the brackets, it's going to give us that new line that we want. So where exactly should we put it? Well, I shouldn't put it inside of here. If I put it inside of here, then everything would be on a different line. I want all of the rows to be on different lines. So whenever we go to a new row right over here, before we begin going to that row, I want to go ahead and make a new line just so we go ahead and make it nice and neat. Whoops. You have nothing inside there. Sorry, I'm clumsy right now. There we go. So now we have the print line right there, which means we're going to have everything on different lines. Well, now we still need to go ahead into our main, and we need to go ahead and indicate that we want it to use, this method that we created, this print array method, and we need to tell it exactly which array we want to pass through. So we'll go inside of our main up here, and I'm going to go ahead and write the name of the array, right? So I'm going to go ahead and see that the array that I want to use is called the, where is it? Print array. Sorry about that. The method I want to use is the print array, and I want to use the not Prius array. Now, you don't have to go ahead and put boxes inside of here, right? Because remember, this is all being replaced by A. So if you go ahead and replace just the A by not Prius, well, you already have those 2 boxes waiting for you right here. So it already assumes that it's going to be a multi-dimensional array. You don't need to do anything about that. So go ahead and leave that right there. And now we can go ahead and make this nice if you really wanted to. Actually, we don't need to do this. You know what? No, I'm not even going to bother. I was going to pick a nice little statement to say this is the this is your array, but we can go ahead and run this to actually see that it works. We go ahead and run, and boom, there is our array. Look at that. It's beautiful. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that's how we make, we print out the table of our array, right? We're printing out the array in the actual way that it should appear. And I think that is pretty awesome. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you watch more of the videos, I guess. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I will respond to you as soon as possible. Thank you very much for watching. I know this was confusing, but if you have any questions or need some clarification, comments below, I will help you. Goodbye.